We're back with another amazing, absolutely amazing grand finale PowerPoint.
It doesn't mean we're not going to make any more. It just means this is a
grand finale.
This is for Iran and today's date and so forth. Everything got to do with it. But I'll let you do the explaining because you've just read it, fresh in your mind, and I'll sit mute as I usually do.
All right, we'll get straight into it. This is all about Sri Lanka. I'll explain as we go along.
Okay, so we get this out of the way.
Now, in previous videos, Yahweh has shown how the measure of the Great Pyramid, altar to the Lord, King's Chamber, reveals the number 31101. By measuring along the 50th layer floor through the antechamber to the far wall of the King's Chamber, add the distance to the coffer, then the ceiling, then multiply by lunation, the product equals the verse total of the King James 1611 Bible, which is 31101.
Good. There we go.
This slide are those measurements, adding them all together, multiplied by lunation in days, which is 29.53052, equals 31101. So that's the total of the number of verses in this 1611 King James Version of the Bible. Now, in May 2011, from Fiji, Yahweh revealed the island of Sri Lanka and the story from the Hindu scriptures that are over 4,000 years old. How they named Jesus, how he would die on the cross, resurrect, and that as Jesus he was Yahweh or Jehovah. Yahweh explained the Hindu Vedas told how Noah released a raven that has telescopic vision. They can fly to an altitude of 20,000 feet, and then the raven returned. After a period, it was released a second time, and then it did not return. Noah then released a dove towards the direction of the raven. The dove, by comparison, is low-flying and capable of long distance. It returned to Noah with an olive branch. There's the island.
So it had found land, right?
And the olive branch is... What's the olive branch, babe? What's the olive branch?
That's the martial coat of arms.
There you go. Now, Sri Lanka has...
It's actually dual. It's got the royal on one side, and then it's got the olive branch. But there is a couple. Another one is black and white stripes, which is Michael the Archangel.
Now, Sri Lanka has a variety of animals that are also spread all around the world. You can find there the predator animals, panthers, leopards, wildcats, lynxes, jackals, bears and monkeys. And then in the large rivers, crocodiles up to 8 meters in length. The variety of the world of birds is astonishing. Pink flamingos, white storks, colourful parrots and peacocks, a cross-section of the world's wildlife, all on Sri Lanka. Here's monuments, ancient monuments. Look at the size of these stones and rocks, and how in the heck did they get them there? And here's, this is amazing, isn't it? A place for a helicopter to land there. Okay. Now, Sri Lanka is one of the most ancient countries in the world, and Yahweh is not talking about the monuments or the legendary conquerors. This small paradise is where Adam and Eve descended to earth. The Garden of Eden revisited for a second chance. The next slide is Adam's Peak, which is 7,546 feet high, or 2,300 meters. And look at it. Yahweh's always said he wants to live on a mountain. The only way in or out by a helicopter.
Well, that also keeps the Jehovah's Witnesses away from
the front door. Yeah. That'll do. Adam's Peak, here we come. Now, the number 7546 in Hebrew means sweet-smelling perfume of flowers. The 2300 means in Hebrew to be sharp, that is, point of a mountain. In Greek, theaomai, to look closely at, behold, with wide open eyes at something remarkable, to gaze at from a distance. And look, oh, that is glorious. The colour of the rock and the leopard. Now, in Sri Lanka, the highest mountain is nearby Adams Peak. It's called Talagala. And it's 8,280 feet high. The English gematria for that name is 144. The location, 7 degrees and 3 seconds north by 80 degrees, 46 minutes, 26 seconds east. There are 7 mountains over 7,000 feet. Now, of course, what's the first thing a mountain and 144 brings to mind? Of course, the Great Pyramid.
And the Book of Revelation.
Yes, absolutely. We measure to it, the pyramid, and the distance is 3110.1 nautical miles, which is the verse total of the King James 1611 only Bible. Okay, so the distance... Well, fix it. Okay, I'll read while you play around with it. The distance, 3110.1 nautical miles, is also the total of the 7 names in 1 Chronicles 5:13, which is a key verse in all of the Bible. It's the house of God. There are also the 7 mountains over 7,000 feet, and so with GPS software, measuring the area between them is 118.8 square nautical miles, and that leads right down to Psalm 118 verse 8, which says, "It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man." And the 8th word is Lord, which has a number in 3068 in the Hebrew Concordance. Now, while the 2 of us were curing people of deadly diseases in Fiji in 2011, we stayed in a rundown resort surrounded on the one side and rear by the Fijian army. The resort had a Fijian Hindu priest working as a guard, sitting in a small gatehouse. His angel spoke to him one morning, telling him to... Actually, he woke him up. Yeah, I said he was sleeping. His angel woke him up and said to get down to our cottage to speak to us. So he got in the habit of coming down each day, and it didn't take too long before that he concluded by watching Yahweh's face and also asking many, many questions, and the answers, knowledge that we gave, it didn't take him too long to figure out that what we were telling him was the absolute truth, and he concluded, of course, he was Yahweh, Jehovah. And Raj was the one, as a holy man, who told us of the truth of the Hindu Vedas, how old they were, and of course how Jesus Christ was named as the Saviour, and his ministry, first time round, the crucifixion, even right down to the vinegar, the narcotic on the vinegar on the stick. So, and it was Raj who said that the Vedas also predict that Yahweh, and Raj himself said that in the strictest Hindu tradition, the holy man tradition, they would have the utmost respect meeting any man on the earth because they could be shaking the hand of the Creator. And of course that day he did. He knew that he was speaking to the Creator. And so he spent 2 months with us daily learning. It was a two-way street. Now, that leads us on to another native of Fiji. You've got the Indians, of course, and then the native Fijians. And this time a Fijian native called Lami, that was his nickname. He visited us from the church that was on the army base just up the road. Remember, we were bordering it. He was a friend of James, who'd met me that afternoon at the markets while I was shopping. He came over to me and asked if he could carry my bags for me, and then he organised a taxi, and he got into the taxi to come with me to go back to the cottage. And of course I just start talking, because the Fijians, they're all waiting for the coming of the Lord, and 99.9% of them are all Christians. And so I told him, I said, well, you know, I got straight into it, because I wasn't sure about him. And then I told him that the Christ has come. His name is Leonard Golightly Marshall, and he came to the cottage And of course he met him and spent hours that afternoon with us, and he told us then that he had come over to me because his angel had spoken to him and said, go and help that woman, she is your mother. So he did, and of course he was amazed, totally blown away. Here he told us of his own circumstances. He was working slave labour for an Australian food production company, he was working 12 hours a day through all kinds of conditions, earning about $10 a day. And that day that we met him, he didn't have the money to reinstate his power that had been cut off. He wasn't able to get to the power company to cut it off. So we gave him the money and he went off to do that, and then he came back later. He also told us about his mother who was suffering from type 2 diabetes, an active woman who for the last 12 months could do nothing but lie down. She might spend 1 hour up during the day, but she couldn't take care of the family. It had fallen to his own young wife to take care of everybody on his meagre salary of $70 a week. And he couldn't even afford to catch the bus to work. He had to walk an hour and a half each way. Oh, anyway, it's typical though of how the natives are really taken advantage of, and foreign-owned corporations, a lot of them Australian. And of course, what are we talking about? We're talking about their God being, Baphomet, Freemason, and
something like 40 children a year around Christmas time, I think it is. Disappear.
Mm.
Oprah Winfrey had come out with a plane load of people to Australia, dumped them off, come over to Fiji, then one on the blood moon, which hadn't been a blood moon for 400 some odd years, 454 years, went to a
tiny island.
And it was where the owner of the drink,
Red Bull, owns $26,000 per night touring.
Yeah, that's right. And they was having a big sacrifice over there. She's actually right into the sacrificial stuff. She's a very evil person.
Why she's so wealthy. Okay, now getting back to James, telling us about his mum, I put together 14 capsules and told him to give it to his mother, one in the morning, one in the evening, but one as soon as he got home that night, because by this time he's back at night time with Lami. And we gave him also money to buy a big tray of eggs and butter. Their habit in the morning was to have rice. For a diabetic, that's the worst thing that you can have. So, and the next day we saw him after church. They came downstairs and she had restored overnight. She did throw up, as we warned. She threw up the first pill, got it all out of her, detoxed, and then by the next pill she was up and restored to life from that night onward. And we have a video of her weeks and weeks later, where she is bright as a button. And of course, James's wife Grace had been away with the children while this is all happening, and she came back to find her mother-in-law completely restored. And she didn't know she couldn't believe it. And then, of course, James brought her down to meet us. And we did the same with their daughter, who had this rash on her leg. And so...
Oh, that was horrible.
Yes, that was... the silver water cleared that up.
It's like this thing I got on my arm here.
Oh.
It would look like she'd have been beat up, but of course they hadn't.
Mm.
But it was like that all over her legs, and just had developed that way.
Okay, now getting back to Lami, he spent hours, of course, with James that night when James brought Lami back. So it was late, after midnight when they went back. Then they came down, of course, again after church the next day. And they told the pastors of the church that the Christ had come and all about it. Now, Lami's story is amazing because he was in a boiler explosion six years before. New Zealand Logging Company. No, it was Queensland Logging Company.
New Zealand?
New Zealand?
Mm-hmm.
The insurance was at
Never
Queensland.
trust a Kiwi, I told you that.
Okay, all right, but the insurance was a Queensland company, something like that. Anyway, but Lami should have died in that accident. His head had been split open right down to the bone. His whole nervous system was exposed.
His spine was bare.
He spent many months and then over the years in and out of hospital. And
they couldn't fix him, of course.
No, of course they couldn't. So the best they could do is just kind of patch him up and send him on his way, and then take him back in.
So I worked on him for a couple of minutes, and he was 100% cured.
Well, that was it. There were like two bouts with Lamy, weren't there? Because that was then.
Now at the churches are all sucking right up to the what church is it over there? Whatever, bullshit church.
Well,
they showed them this, right, and they were at first taken back. Then we showed them the translation into the language, the local language, which they use either, which are all identical. And I said, now, you're sucking up to Freemasonry. But in the trip we've been there before, where we were staying in it was a semi-resort units owned by people that had bought them off the Hilton Corporation, had dredged out the bay and made landfill and so forth. But they had a Freemason hall there, and one day the ladies who were cleaning up for the people from the resort found a box, and in it was a head.
Skull and bones. It was a skull and bones.
These were all Australians primarily, very, very wealthy businessmen, owned all the big businesses over there. The army went in the next day or so, or the next meeting rather, and grabbed them all with the police, put them in jail, and then Frank Bainimarama, the next day, released them.
They had to leave the country, but they were all released.
So they say.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting is, remember, Emily told us, and Emily's in tourism, and she was saying that that day that they were released after spending the night in jail, headlines all over the news, all over the newspapers were what good work the Freemasons do. And
wonderful people.
She said she hadn't read anything about them forever, and then this happens, and suddenly, from around the globe, what good works Freemasons do.
The Queen would be so proud, wouldn't she?
Oh, yeah. Now, moving right along. Okay, so, yeah, the government was watching us both trips. We were there in November 2010 and then back in February for 4 months, 2011. We sent Frank Bainimarama plus the permanent secretary and the president of the nation 33 pages of facts before we arrived on the 12th of November in 2010, all about the cures for AIDS and what we'd done, plus all about Brian as the Christ. You know, this is the whole country, you know, oh, Jesus, they're waiting for him to front up. And so when he does, of course, it's not like they've been told, because the world has been deceived. However, the meek, of course, received the news with glad tidings. The dudes at the top that are making all the money, of course, don't want to know. Now, so they ignore us because there's no money in our cures. We teach people to do it themselves, and it doesn't cost anything. And
no,
so
not that. They want them dead.
Oh, well, yeah.
They've all got birth certificates. Let's get you the straw man. And what they do is, Frank Bainimarama was told that because he was the Commodore of the Navy and so forth, and had taken over in a military coup, he was sending soldiers off, and the government gets paid for every soldier they send. Now, we had spoken to many soldiers that have been over to the front lines in the various wars, and they always send them to the front line. So the soldiers get $10 a day.
$10 Fiji.
Fiji a day, right? So this is about $5 US, if that. And because if they get killed, then the owner of the birth certificate might get 20 million, 30 million. So then there's a kickback going to Frank Bainimarama, and as I say, they're all in on it. And he's certainly worth the cost of a bullet, that guy.
Now, Lamy, of course, had cousins everywhere. Oh, it's my cousin.
Well, his father had 13 brothers and sisters, and his mother had about 35.
No, 13, the same. It was pretty much the same. So he had, cousins working in the health department, and he did arrange for us to speak with them. We spent an entire afternoon with them. It was great, these beautiful Fiji doctors who all gathered around the boardroom table, and, you know, of course I'm doing the talking and Yahweh's there, and we treated all of them with the Bob Beck protocol. The only dude who...
I did say something, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
I said you want a glass of water, yes,
No. The only dude who didn't... No, forget that. The only dude who didn't want to be in there was the Indian doctor who was the head of the department.
They all say things like,
and then left.
have you got any papers on it? Have you got any this? Have you got that? Has it done through university studies? approved by the FDA. All this bullshit. As if God's going to front up, start curing people and have to get a bloody permit, right? Or prove it. Like, there's a person who was going to be dead, up and walking, right? Here's a person that would have had his legs chopped off with the diabetes too, and that's the biggest thing. They call it the chop. A lot of people have been amputees over there, and of course they suddenly recover. They don't need it no more. We're just saying, well, what happens is they walk into the supermarkets, and this is how supermarkets operate, a Zionist supermarket. You walk in, and anything that's not good for you is at the level that is easy to pick up. So they'd pick up these gallons of bloody oil. That was all sorts of oil, but soy in particular.
Canola, soy.
Soy is one of the worst things in the world.
The seed oil.
Seed oils.
Saturated.
And what they do is they put a layer of plastic over your cells so that the receptor on the cell, when insulin comes along, it can't lock into it. And if it does lock into it, normally it opens up the center of the cell in a specific shape and a key, and that allows the sugar molecule to go in. So unless this is taking that plastic off there, and this is what we was able to do, it might be only 1 micron thick. I don't know, it was a guess, but the point is that you can't feed a person plastic, and although you call it vegetable oil, you think it's vegetable.
Flora, heart healthy, believing the advertising. So they've been bullshitted by Western Zionist corporations.
The parents over there of old is 100 years old, no problem, because they all use coconut oil for cooking and don't touch any of the Western foods.
Okay, so here we go, going through first trip November 2010, the Commodore. Frank ignored us, even though his army friends, had spent much time with us, and they were excited, and he just completely ignored us. But we did get to spend half an hour with Major Rokaura, who was amazed.
A nice fellow.
Yeah, good for, and
most people in Fiji are very lovely people. It's the pricks at the top. Right.
Now, what happened was Major Rokaura.
He's a right-hand man of Frank Bainimarama.
He was to make an appointment for us with Frank. Well, 10 days later, he phoned us and he was crying over the phone. He'd spent 20 minutes with Frank with the document that you've seen here that we put together for Frank, pages and pages and pages of information and miracles, and plus the 33 pages they'd all already received. And Frank dismisses and says, "I don't believe it." Well, Major Rokaura was devastated. He'd already been telling the fellas in the army, this is the document, his army friends and colleagues and what do you call them in the army? Soldiers. All the soldiers on the base, they already knew. Had many conversations with them and they were delighted. So,
And they're all astounded why Frank Bainimarama, such a lovely fellow,
what does Frank say?
Would not make a comment or, in fact, end up throwing us out the country. That's the best thing he could have done, because that alerts the people that they've got an arsehole at the top.
Yeah. Okay.
Arseholes usually at the bottom, aren't they? Well, we will be.
Moving right along, baby. They can read what's on this. Oh, yeah. Now, Major Rokaura, the appointment is made. We're going to meet him before he picks up Frank, who was flying back from China. So he gets a phone call from an Australian on his army mobile, and the voice, the person, warned him not to meet with us, that we were mad or crazy. Of course, that just made him more curious, and how the hell did he get his army mobile, and why was he phoning him to warn him about us? So it didn't take him very long. He was about 10 minutes into the conversation as he began leaning in. It's all up there. It's been up on the internet, and it's all in the archive material of servers all around the planet, and of course our own archives, that interview with Major Rokaura, who we found out on our second trip had been arrested by Frank and was interned on the army base in Suga, and but won't be much longer.
Keep his yap shut, see?
Frank is dead. Major Rokaura.
We'll make sure of that.
Yeah. And here is what it's all about, Freemasonry.
This is the thing that's got we showed you the other day, Solomon and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, just to go back here, there is how it works out, which we showed, of course, the major, how the languages work, and Lord Jesus Christ, and so forth. So, this bloody thing not working either.
No, it is.
Isn't working. Then we showed him...
yeah, these are the pages out of the book. Who it is that's in control?
Prince Charles?
Prince Charles, coat of arms, Talmud. Who was being released?
The shake. Now, here's the Queen with lovely chap here. He's doing that very, very same signal with his hand. There it is. There's Bush doing it. Now, every photograph that comes out of the royal family, taken with dignitaries like this arsehole, the Queen has to approve it.
And there he is, Lord Lucifer Rothschild.
Now, of course, I've measured all the distances to Lord Lucifer and all this kind of thing. And I didn't put it into this one because the document is getting too long. But this was shown to Major Rotorua. Showed him various things like that.
I'll just read from the page that you just saw. The longitude and latitude 5153 Hebrew is perhaps in the sense of ringing bell metal, or from the red colour of the throat of a serpent when hissing, coppery, hard of brass from a snake, from its hiss, the serpent. That's the latitude of Rothschild's. Now, the distance from his that residence, which is in Buzzard, England, Wing Leighton, Buzzard, England, the distance to the pole, that would be the North Pole, 2632.8 miles, is strength, power, occupy, possess in Hebrew, and in Greek is to judge, against, sentence, condemn, damn. So that's what Yahweh has already done to him, and that's just the beginning. Oh, from the North Pole, 2286 in nautical miles, poisonous, fatal, deadly. Okay, getting the drift?
Like there was no way in the world that he would have acquired that property or had it built unless the latitude and longitude was spelling out exactly what they wanted to.
Oh, here we go.
Because the King James Bible, of course, is owned by the Freemasons, which are all Satanists.
Measuring to the equator, I won't tell you the numbers, but measuring to the equator is 5770 from 5869 to watch with jealousy, eye, and from intoxication, drunkenness, as in the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. Nautical miles, afar off, from afar, and it goes on and on. There's several pages there covering just the one. And here they are, the Luciferian political command.
There's your religious.
Your religious. Kenneth Copeland and wife. And of course.
The Pope. He's doing a double Baphomet. Now we've got the lineage of the Queen. They're trying to say that Mary Magdalene and Jesus were man and wife, and they had children. First one in 33 AD. Second one in 37 AD. That means no chance in the world of Jesus dying on the cross and ascending. And then we've got Josephus, which is of course the name we think, oh, I'm familiar with that. But that's an old historian that, again, you wouldn't trust as far as you could hurl him. That is accepted as being an authentic expert on the days leading up to the time of Jesus.
Now, let's get back to Sri Lanka. Showing the 7 mountains with the heights over 7,000 feet. The highest is 8281 feet, and that's the 8th mountain. Yahweh has used the Magellan software showing the area within the mountains. The software is excellent for accuracy and fine details down to a few feet. There's the blue area, 118.8 square nautical miles, and the length is 50.1 nautical miles. And of course that's a reference to Psalm 118 verse 8.
Again.
And the 50.1 nautical miles, meaning God has made. There's Psalm 118 verse 8. It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. And the 8th word, of course, is the word Lord, 3068. Now, quoting Isaiah 11:9, we've just been through, we're in the month of September still, and of course 9/11, 8 days ago now, 8 days ago now. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, 3068, as the waters cover the sea. Reiterating, we covered this in our last video, but in the early 90s, Yah was able to get onto the internet. He hadn't made any uploads, and the first thing that he read was in a chat room. And the post said, "I hear Jesus is back living in Canada, waiting for the time he will take over the world." Now, this is
It's the mountain in Sri Lanka.
That's the highest mountain in Sri Lanka, 8281 feet, and measuring to.
Let's see, where are we going?
Oh, that's a 311.
Yeah.
0.1. Okay. All right. Remember the number 31101 verses in the King James Bible.
To the Great Pyramid.
That's the distance.
There's the centre of the pyramid. Because we're using Google Earth for the photographs, that is actually, you take a square base, draw a line across it, and there's the exact centre of it, and that gives you that number there. This one here is, again, how the numbers all and genetics relate. That's where I was born, up to my first wife, down to Michelle, who was Mary Magdalene, and back again. Now, these women produce children that give us these numbers. So the pink line included with these two here, that one there to there, for example, is 777.7. That's the age difference in days between my youngest daughter and Michelle's youngest daughter. Then we go back to where I was born. That's got 1471. Now, this is interesting because it says pregnant great with child. The blue line is the distance to the South Pole, and that's the word comforter. So the comforter is God coming to the earth. Jesus says, if I don't go, God won't come back. That's basically what it's saying. Now, Michelle to the pole is 5813. That's the height of the completed pyramid with the capstone in place. And the distance through Nell Street here, around the earth, is 31680 kilometres, which is Lord Jesus Christ in Greek. But you'll notice I had to marry this dreadful, she died the other day, and the latitude is 3323, which is anointed Messiah in Greek and Hebrew. So there's an area now. The area of this area here, it is in fact 31101 square metres. I don't think I put it into this PowerPoint, did I?
Yeah.
I did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. This is done again with Magellan. When I went up there to see my daughter, I haven't seen her for years, the youngest one. She didn't want to see me. And my ex-wife had told her, or something to the kids, something dreadful about me. Anyhow, I never did find out. I don't want to know, really. And again, from where I was born is 118.22 kilometres. And that is Psalms 11822. So we've got the area, and we've got that number there, which is all to do with rejected capstone. Go ahead.
Oh, right. As mentioned, the Great Pyramid 50th layer reveals 31101, King James Version of the 1611 Bible verse total, and also all 7 names from 1 Chronicles 5:13. The average of when you divide 7 into 31101 is 4443, found in 3877 verses. Now 3877 is the distance in nautical miles to the South Pole from where Yahweh was reborn, and the 4443 is the number of times the word God is found in those 38777.
And born into a Catholic family, of course.
Now, while we're in Savu, Yahweh was looking through his software and he found a program that would not install. He'd tried for 7 years before, it just wouldn't work. However, this day it did, and it opened. And when it opened,
And installed,
the program sold in the USA, it would normally open over the USA. However, this one didn't. It opened over Sri Lanka. And the screen was 1,700 miles out in space. And then as he zoomed in, it was showing the area in particular of Colombo. Now, of course, Yahweh had been there in 1963 on his way to Africa. Then continuing to zoom in, waypoints appeared, closing in closer to the waypoints. He saw that
so
there
I'll
were
just
8
basically show you now.
eastward from Colombo.
That's how it opened up. Then as I started to zoom in, because I thought, why? Angels do this sort of stuff to me all the time. And they say, yeah, I've been to Colombo, no worries, see? As I got closer, I noticed these, and these are waypoints that are never in any program that you buy off Magellan, and I've had all of them, do they open up with waypoints already in them. But however, this is me, it's a little different. And this is what they look like. It's almost like a cup. And we see the numbers. Can you read those numbers out there?
Yes, the one on the right is 107726 SP. That would mean South Pole. And then you've got the next one, 3168, Arc. And then the Colombo rather, not Colombo, Colombo, UMBO. And then the next one is 5813, nautical miles, and then it's SP, that would be South Pole. Then the one to the bottom left is Victory Pyramid, PYR. The one above it is called Foot's Pyramid, PYR, and the one at the very top on the left is 3069 Pyramid.
The next slide will show you the coordinates that you can zoom in, freeze frame it. If you just hit print screen, and you can save it into a bitmap, and then you can zoom it, and it'll give you the numbers. So if you get hold of the Magellan, don't use Google Earth, but use Magellan. And Google Earth is, well, 3 times we've exposed them as being inaccurate by huge amounts of discrepancy. So there they all are. But I want to point these out. You've got Ararat, right? This has appeared on the computer. 107726. That's how many days there are between Charles I and myself, which I've always been annoyed about, ever since I was a child. And that's the difference in put a decimal point between the 2 and the 6. That's how many miles there is between the same address of a house that was owned by my parents, and my mother died, and then my father, who hated me with a passion, he was going to cut me out the will at the last moment, but because he was incompetent, that couldn't be done. It had been handed over to my brother. So he had the decision on that. The next one is 3168, which is Lord Jesus Christ, to the ARC, to the Ark. Then we've got 5813N to the South Pole. 5813 is the height of the Great Pyramid, and it's also the distance in kilometres to Nell Street, where I live with Mary Magdalene. Then you've got Colombo spelt C-O-L-U-M-B-O. And then we go down to 3069 Pyramid. Then we've got Foot's Pyramid, and then is that V-I-C-T-Y?
Victory, yeah.
Victory Pyramid. So naturally I dove into it and started doing that. And this is what it means. You can't read it.
Okay. First, number 1, Ararat. Yahweh's brother was 8.88 years older than himself. The sunrise and sunset on the day he was born was 780, and that is the word Ararat. The 107726 to the South Pole, the distance to the South Pole in kilometres. In nautical miles, however, it is 5813.5, and that was Yahweh's home on Nell Street, Greensboro, Victoria, Melbourne, 5813.7 kilometres to the South Pole.
There is a reason why it's 0.7 as opposed to being the same number, and that actually identifies the distance across Brazil, and gives you the name, what is it? Mother.
Oh yes, that's right.
Remember that?
That's right. We did that.
Now that's another thing it'll take 2 hours to explain that, but I won't go into that.
That was Fiji as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm. All right, now also the distance between the homes, Yahweh's parents' home in Sydney, Australia, and 7 Travone Street, Padstow, or rather Cornwall, Travone Road, Cornwall. Is that distance 10772?
You go to the top of the northern part of the road where it ends near the beach, and it is 10772.6, and also the amount of days between the beheading of Charles I and my birth.
And the completed.
Oh, the completed pyramid is also the same.
The diagonal
in feet.
when it's completed in feet. Okay. The 3069 is 3169 nautical miles to the Great Pyramid. 3069 is Lord, and the value of the cheques that he was Yahweh was charged with fraud over in 1989 with $306.90. 3168 arc to Ararat, 3168 miles. And from the Colombo to the city of Colombo is 2.424 miles, and 2424 is the listing for Jesus in the Greek concordance. However, the spelling Colombo is not Colombo, Sri Lanka. It's somewhere else. The closest Colombo is Colombo Creek, New South Wales, Australia. Now, it measures from there 8,600 kilometres, and that was Yahweh's age to his daughter's conception, which was July the 27th, 1967, when Yahweh was 8,600 days old. Jupiter is 88,800 miles wide, and it was over Port Alberni, BC, Canada, on that date of the conception for 888 minutes. Now, of course, Yahweh's daughter was born on May the 4th, which is the day that this is all happening, 2011. 1968 was her birthday, and Yahweh was 8,880 days old. The sunrise to sunset was 888 minutes, and the verse Matthew 1:23 has a Greek gematria of 8,880. He could go on. However, this is the verse. Behold, a virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Now, Colombo Creek to Yahweh's rebirth home at 39.67 degrees, and that number 3967 in Greek is patrikos, meaning paternal father. And there it is there. The distance is 130.15 miles, and the 130, have you got it?
I think so. We have a lot of trouble with computers. We're constantly being hacked. But anyhow, we'll get it right in a minute.
This
there
time.
You go.
Yeah,
come
next
up right?
one, babe. Yeah. So that's the distance between the two. So let's go to the 130. Okay, 130 is the gematria for the location where the mountains are found. Nuwara Elijah. Nuwara Elijah.
New
130. 130 in English gematria. 1301 is the level of the Dead Sea below sea level, and Barak in Hebrew meaning a flashing sword, bright, glittering sword.
That's why the ex-Prime Minister of this bogus Israel was named Barak.
Oh, that's his offsider.
No, we're talking Jeremiah. We're talking the Prime Minister of Israel some years ago. His name was Barak. That's why they put him in, strike like lightning, right?
Right, okay, got it. But his general now today is Barak.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. All right, now Yahweh says he never prompts anyone to reach a conclusion. He always waits for a person to dream or be inspired, even seeing an angel. He was working at his computer in Nell Street when his eldest granddaughter walked into the room, and at age 4, she announced, "I was your mother, wasn't I?" He said yes, and said no more. She walked back into the other room to play with her toys. Now, she was reborn on the 222nd day of the year, which was August 11th in 2001, 2 years before the last solar eclipse of the 20th century had taken place on the same date. The passage of the totality of that eclipse started in the Irish Sea, ending over Sri Lanka. There are 222 verses with the word truth and 222 verses with the word wisdom, and Yahweh has always weighed 222 pounds as an adult. And of course, you were born at 2:22 a.m., the thief in the night. Now, Yahweh's mother had died 2 years before on her sister's birthday, her grandson's birthday, and her granddaughter's birthday, which was July the 24th, so that was 1999. Had she lived, she would have been 88.834 years old when Alaska was born on August 11th, 2001. So when we measure from the Colombo Creek, New South Wales, to Yahweh's rebirth location, to the highest peak in Sri Lanka, the distance is 8,883.4 kilometres. Okay, and there it is. The heading 161.57.
What I can do with this particular program is you can see the blue part. It looks like a sword. Well, you can do that. You can take 3 points. It'll give the area in between. Now, I've done a lot of things with that, and it gets a bit complicated to show people who are, especially when they've just come off the internet and they've found something like this. And,
right. Now, the 1615 was something remarkable too, wasn't it?
Got it there?
Is it? I can't remember. Keep going.
Yeah, it means 1615 means to end, completely finished, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Next one.
Next two down. Again. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alaska was born August 11th, 2001, the anniversary of the last solar eclipse that ended its path over Sri Lanka. 3246 Hebrew Yakud, a foundation from the beginning. The 1615 degrees is complete finish. And that leads into Luke 14:29-30, quoting, "Lest haply after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and he was not able to finish."
Doesn't that apply today somehow?
It does, and there you go.
So there's the dates just confirming so forth. And we go on. There's a close-up of the latitudes and longitudes. Notice that the word, now angels put this in. I didn't do any of this. This is what happens, that angels sort of pop in now and then and say a few words.
Around. Set things on their edge.
Push me off cliffs and stuff like that. Prove I can't be killed.
Okay.
Now this one, well, you read that. You've gone through.
Okay, so where Yahweh was born as Jesus in Bethlehem, measuring from the coast to Bethlehem at 90 degrees from the coast, proceed to the latitude of 31.68 degrees. Stop on that latitude at 33.7999 miles, and there is the birth manger. Why 33799? Calculating the birth date as Jesus. June the 17th, 2 BC. Jupiter and Venus aligned in a conjunction at 8 a.m. The omega is the number 800, and Lord in Greek gematria is 800. Jesus is 888 and Christ is 1480. Add them all together and you get 3168. And that is the latitude, 31.68. And the distance from the sea, 33.799 or 33.8 years.
Like, we're only talking a metre or two difference here,
yeah.
So I just rounded it up.
Right. Being birth as Jesus to resurrection. He lived 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. It's April the 3rd was the death and risen on April the 5th, 33 AD, Jerusalem time.
See, this is where the Quran, or the people that say they know all about and this is that and so forth, they deny the resurrection, they deny the cross and all this bullshit. And as I said before, I've read a few pages of the Quran and I said, ain't me talking, so I just closed it. The Jupiter and Venus, when they lined up in a conjunction, rose over the horizon of Bethlehem at 8:00 in the morning. 8:00 is Lord in Greek.
All right, now the latitude and longitude is, you can see it there on the screen.
I should say, Venus is the representative in the planets as the mother and Jupiter the father. Don't go down the line where they're talking about what happened in ancient times, maybe a few centuries before the cross and this kind of thing. They're talking about the Greek gods and all. It's all bullshit. It's got nothing to do with what the pharaohs and the Egyptians and Isis. It's all bullshit. It all come along 1,000 years after the pyramid was built.
Okay.
So Venus, 698 it was. That is Martial. And Mercury was 702. So you add them two together, you get 1400. Now this is, carry on, this is where it gets interesting.
Okay, there are 194 verses with certain man. This is the term used by Talmud Jews to avoid saying the name of God, which is Jesus. There are 194 verse verses with the word certain. The last is Jude 1:4, quoting, "For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men, turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness and denying the only Lord God and our Lord Jesus Christ." Now, of course, who are they talking about?
Yeah, I wonder. I think it could have been me.
Talking about the Jews.
Oh.
All right, now we're back to measuring
from
the
that
highest
back to
mountain.
Bethlehem, and we've got that number, 5447, right?
0.64 kilometres. Now, Yahweh's home at 4/150 Nell Street, Greensboro, Melbourne, is not perfectly square. A curiosity as two sides have a slight dogleg. He measured it years ago by walking the centre of the streets and marking the corners and doglegs with waypoints. Each straight line in the precise centre of the street, 8 waypoints, and the distance around was instantly calculated with the Magellan handheld GPS, and the result was 888 metres. Are we surprised? And there is the Nell Street
Now, there's
location.
a dogleg there, see. Now, most cities, they don't have doglegs in them like that, but this particular area did.
Okay, now that's, of course, where Yahweh lived with Mary Magdalene for 13.13
And of course,
years.
when she got the opportunity while I was curing people in Fiji, she sold up the house on my father's birthday and kept everything for herself, which I had paid for. Everything. I'd paid for everything. She ripped me off for about 250 grand. Her response to me when I spoke to her or sent her an email was, "You've got to find me first." Well, I can fucking find her, no worry about that. But she will lose everything, including a life.
Now, Sri Lanka, of course, is ancient. Now, that's 547 BC. This is Wikipedia. You know, you can't trust anything on Wiki.
Wikipedia's all. But what it's trying to say here, even if you take it of the corruption of the Wikipedia, Solomon's around 900 BC.
Yeah.
So this thing didn't even exist according to Wikipedia. It didn't exist until 547.
Yet they say that it's rumoured that Solomon got all of his treasures from there.
And that's Tarshish,
yeah,
where Paul came from. Right.
Everything's meant to confuse and promote the idea you must obey your government, because that's what Paul said. But obey your government that's there by the authority of God. Bullshit.
Well, I've read 3 or 4 verses of Paul. Bullshit.
Now, from the highest peak of the mountain, which is 8,281 feet, in Sri Lanka, to St. Catherine's Monastery, where the only authentic written and signed letter of any prophet, biblical or Quran, is the letter to the monks sent by Muhammad, which is on display. The Jews say it is a forgery, so naturally it means it's genuine. The distance says it all, 3390 miles.
I'd like to say to all the clerics of the Muslim world, don't you come to me with anything saying this is what blah blah blah. Keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear it. There's going to be a complete revamp of all your holy books, and it's going to be mine.
Quoting Daniel 6:10, now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, is that number 3390. He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did a 4th time. Now this is the message from Muhammad ibn Abdullah as a covenant to those who adopt Christianity near and far. Quoting, "We are with them. Verily I, the servants, the helpers, and my followers defend them, because Christians are my citizens, and by Allah, I hold out against anything that displeases them. No compulsion is to be on them. Neither are their judges to be removed from their jobs, nor their monks from their monasteries. No one is to destroy a house of their religion, to damage it, or to carry anything from it to the Muslim's house. Should anyone take any of these, he would spoil God's covenant and disobey his prophet. Verily they are my allies and have my secure charter against all that they hate. No one is to force them to travel or to oblige them to fight. The Muslims are to fight for them. If a female Christian is married to a Muslim, it is not to take place without her approval. She is not to be prevented from visiting her church to pray. Their churches are to be respected. They are neither to be prevented from repairing them, nor the sacredness of their covenants. No one of the nations, that is Muslims, is to disobey the covenant till the last day, the end of the world.
Only Mahmud is doing what I told him to do. I told him to feed, or I told the Queen to feed Somalia. They didn't have enough money. And Iran did.
Well, he said that the others were too busy warmongering. What have we got here? Now this is the distance, the degrees, 300.55 degrees.
That's the angle that comes out from the monastery?
Now, so that's from the monastery to the pyramid, and its remnant being the letter of Muhammad. And 63 metres above sea level, which is the pyramid, is Isaiah 63. It's all about Isaiah 63. Now, the height above sea level tells the story. The pyramid is 63 metres, is Isaiah 63, and Yahweh's rebirth location is 18 metres. And in Hebrew, 18 means crib. Now, here we go. The distance from the highest mountain on Sri Lanka to Yahweh's place of birth is 8,674 kilometres, and 8674, of course, is the word of God total in the Hebrew concordance. 8,674 words.
Right, now, if that was years, it is 3168.
No, if 8.674 is years, it would be 3168 days. I know, you do it all the time, just for me.
What? Well, you don't say that. Okay, now, what I did, because the 31101 is so important, I calculated my place of birth, of course, and in Australia, it is also Julian Day, 24311101. So I took the time of birth at 222, went back to Sri Lanka, and then, which is slightly behind Australia, and the star directly above. But as point of birth was YBS 0942, which is Jesus' verse total.
Yeah, that's how many verses in the New Testament has the word Jesus in it.
And it's also the last solar eclipse to that crib, and it's 942 miles.
Occurring?
November the 14th. 10 hours, I'm sorry Charles, you miss out little boy, by the fact that Australia is crossing the international daylight before Charles' birth. So it's on the 13th for Charles and the 14th.
He'll be 64.
He'll be 64, same age as Solomon.
Solomon died at 64, didn't he?
He died at 64.
Yeah. First evil man on the history. All right, now, moving right along. Do you want to read this?
This is Cambridge, Massachusetts. A historian of early Christianity at Harvard Divinity, a woman by the way, school was identified a scrap of papyrus, which means it's Egyptian, that she says was written in Coptic Egyptian in the 4th century and contains a phrase never seen in any piece of scripture because they've ripped it out every chance they got. That is why Muhammad's letter is so important. It was written to the Coptics. This is why Russia is Coptic. What you've got is the Russian alphabet is Greek, and the same with the Coptics in Egypt. So the Greek Orthodox Church is what it's all about, far, far, far in advance. And that's what Muhammad was protecting, the people from the Roman Church. Okay? Jesus said to them, I'll read a bit more. The faded papyrus fragment is smaller than a business card with 8 lines on one side. 8 again is the number we're talking about. In black ink, legible under a magnifying glass, just below the line about Jesus having a wife. The papyrus includes a second provocative clause that purportedly says, she will be able to be my disciple, mother. And here it is here. That little tiny thing as big as a business card. There it is.
So of course now The entire church
now,
is in disarray.
That's right. Now, today is a very special day number-wise. I won't go into it, but well, it's 103 days to go to the 21st of December and all that.
93 days.
93 was it? Well, that's the crucifixion. And anyway, it goes on. I don't want to go there at the moment because they go off on tangents. You lose the point. So I command all nations to remove the Zionists from all things infested with the serpent's venom, remove them utterly from off the face of the earth. Immediately warn the Zionists to evacuate the Holy Lands and liberate the Palestinians from all Zionist control. Those Zionists who repent immediately will be spared and must herald my new name, Brian Leonard Golightly Marshall, as God Almighty in the flesh. Establish a new world currency based upon the potential of the world building paradise under the leadership of Iran, and I should mention there, the value of a nation is based on the people's ability and their faith in God. Iran is way ahead of you. Shortly, the Zionist monsters will be wiped off the face of the earth, because they'll either do it or I'll do it, and I won't be pleasant about it. This is death. When my angels go and do the job, it's death. Iran has a chance of going ahead with all these nations that are in the Middle East right now, and the war games that they're playing in the Mediterranean. That makes the hair on my back stand up, and I haven't got any. Iran will spearhead the cleansing of the Middle East, liberating Palestine and establish my kingdom. Islam will be completely revamped for the liberation of the meek, most of which are women and children that are suppressed by the Quran and by these wankers that dictate to them, that are the average person. Right? So, no cleric, government or religion will tell me what to do. Free will is over and out. I will rule with a rod of iron, with kingdoms I will establish, every knee will bow, and my angels will drop the souls of objectors into the abyss. So be very, very careful what you say behind my back, because your angel hears you and you're going to be out of there. That's the name of God. And there we are on the 4th of December in Fiji.
With a click.
With a click. The click of the heels. We went to a Christian Hindu gathering, or it was a wedding, where a gentleman had changed his religion. Was it
Raj?
Raj and Meena. Different Raj, not the Raj who was on the...
Raj, no. Lovely Raj.
They're all right. Beautiful people. Now, you can tell them about what happened when Raj was going to work on the bus.
Oh yes, Raj is a chef, and he switched jobs, and now he had to catch a bus about a half-hour ride to the next closest, Lautoka. That's right, just outside of Lautoka. And
they're all Fijians and Indian people.
Right. Now,
that work in these places.
We are hearing this for the first time on a Sunday afternoon. They have come after church to have lunch with us, and they're telling us what happened. He was on the bus and he saw an old couple with white hair sitting on the bus.
Dressed in white.
They were white people dressed as Westerners. And for everybody getting onto the bus, they were giving them a flyer. And on the flyer, it says, "Come to the 12A Sky Lodge Hotel to hear the truth of the Bible revealed." And it gave the time at 12 noon, the Sunday. We were actually with them. And Raj took it and he looked at it, and of course he knew that that was our address. And he's excited. He goes, "Oh, this is Yahweh and Asherah. This is I know them." And he had to stand at the back of the bus, and he was trying to make his way down to speak to the people, to tell them, I know them, because he thought that they were working for us. He thought that we'd hired them, but they were, that we didn't know about it. So we are hearing about it for the first time that afternoon, and totally astonished, and he described them to us, all kinds of things, and he thought that they were friends of ours and we'd hired them. Well, what that did was that prepared and alerted us to expect the masses that did follow. Nobody came that day, however, that they weren't supposed to, because we were not prepared. But what happened from that day on and all through the next 2 weeks until we left to go to the other island, we met George, who was the security man at the airport, and he brought all 222 members of his Methodist church in the area, and we treated each one of them and cured them of whatever diseases that they had. And of course, that is where we told the story of Stephen and his sister Diane, who told us that their grandfather had taught their father that the bure that they were living in, that Stephen and his family were living in, that had been built by their father, it was to remain in the family forever. A family member had to remain there because the grandfather, who lived to be 110 years old, or 105 wasn't it, when he actually died,
105,
yeah, he said that to this bure the Christ will come, and it will, the news of it will go throughout the world. Well, of course, they are telling us on this day, and then it was pretty much that night, because so many people have been coming for days, that the management of the resort phoned to say that we can't have any more there and we had to go somewhere else. So we went the following day to treat people at that bure that was the object of the prophecy.
So the bure was very old, built by the grandfather, but on the property they had erected like a tin shed which they used for the church. So the 222 members of the church were all, of course, hearing about us, and any of their diseases, whatever they had, we cured them for them. And that just rippled right across the island.
Yes.
The same thing happened up to a certain extent in Fiji, in New Guinea, when we healed people up there. There were people coming down from the highlands with AIDS and all sorts of things.
That form of communication is word of mouth amongst the natives.
See, and also what happened over there, we was interviewed for 2 hours on the government radio, and I think his name was Charles, or Joseph, I forget. He was saying, oh, this has got to go out, this has got to... I said, wait, I'll stop you. No problem, I'll run this, I'm the manager here. Next thing, stopped. But it did go out in Pigeon across the South Pacific. And that, of course, alerted the South Pacific that we were back, and that this is what we were saying, doesn't matter if you believe it or not. The point is, if you want to get cured of your AIDS and so forth, you come and see us.
Mm. Now, of course, that prophecy that the grandfather spoke of was fulfilled that day. Mm. And it did go out to all of the world because we uploaded everything onto the YouTube. Hello! Cyberspace, all of the world. For every eye to see and every ear to hear. So, here endeth today's ripping yarn.
Okay, so Iran has already told I don't like to use the word Israeli because they're certainly not. But the head of the army, or
yes, the general told them, leave, otherwise it will be the
graveyard. Well, I'm giving you a head. Go ahead. You warn them, right? And if they don't leave, I would suggest that you spend a lot of time investigating the other nations that have already got the ships in the area, and lend a hand. And then land in Gaza, 1 million men or so, get your weapons, and walk across into Jerusalem and take it. And if there's one shot fired, open it. Flatten it. Now, I'm saying to all the Jews there, you're forgiven, but you better get out of there. Right? Now, when the Iranians say we're coming, they're coming. If you don't take Iranians seriously, then you've got a big problem. They've always obeyed God. And they already believe it. So let's not do anything stupid here. Get the hell out of Jerusalem. Release the Palestinians. The world will give them the same thing that the Jew bullshit Holocaust survivors, which didn't happen. There was no Holocaust. It's a complete and utter fabrication. It's a Ponzi. Is that the word, Ponzi?
Yeah.
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And release the Germans from the stranglehold they've got over their government.
The guilt. If anybody should be guilty, it's Britain.
Britain is the worst nation on earth. They've always been warmongers, and they've always been headed up by people that have wield the axe very, very, very easily.
And Rothschild was at the top.
Rothschild at the top. As for the Pope, now here I am born into a Catholic family. The Pope has thousands upon thousands of priests that would have automatically gone on YouTube and investigated me. No, they're not doing a damn thing. And even though the Vicar of Christ, God in himself, is supposed to be this Pope, If you look at Revelation 17:1, the beast that was wounded to death and did live was Pope John Paul II. The longest reigning pope. He spoke about 3,000 languages. And 942 days after the Saturday, the Sabbath, that they had decided to make him pope was announced on the 16th. It was the 14th they made the decision. The 14th, the next day, the Sunday, is 666 minutes of sunlight for Rome. So 942 days later, Jesus again, he's shot, but he lived. So that's Revelation 17:1. 17:1, of course, is the length of the Shroud of Turin. 171. And when you phoned me for the first time, we spoke for 171 minutes.
And 38 seconds.
And you should have said it.
Which meant?
What?
It's powerful.
Which means it's powerful.
And why?
So that's how it all fits together. So now we've got this little piece of information that this Cambridge, Massachusetts scholar there, lady has got it. And just on a little business card with 8 lines, tells you the truth. Now, how do we stop this thing?
Oh, that's it. One of them.